Lisa Stanley has been with me over and over again over the years, and I think what we're pulling from this year's conference is we're hitting a point where the technology that was once speculative is here. We're seeing it on the trade show floor. We're going to bring it to you. You just saw robotic automation. I'm curious to know what Lisa is going to tell us about what she's seeing as this year's industry trend. So please come on up. And I'm very, very curious, Lisa.
Hey,
thank
Jerry.
you so much for being here
Thanks
with
for
us.
having me.
Please, first and foremost, what's new at OSCRE?
We have a lot of exciting things that are very much relevant to both this conference and the people that are active in the industry. One of the things that I think is most important as we look at some of the projects we're involved in is a new collaboration with 4 other standards organizations based in Western Europe. We'll be focusing on developing a core data model that is investment focused, so we're very excited about that. One of the most, I guess, exciting parts of that whole collaboration is it's historical. We've never had 5 organizations collaborate in that particular area, and also from the standpoint of realizing that standards are not really specific to geography, but something that needs to be in place across borders, across companies, and really enables the industry to exchange information in a meaningful way. One of the other projects that we have is the OSCRE Academy, which is focused on a certificate program of a variety of data governance topics. And it's not just OSCRE specific, it's how to do an internal assessment of your organization, energy efficiency and sustainability, data governance as a process, and there isn't anything that's more relevant to the conversation of data governance than OSCRE Standards.
Absolutely. How are these, well, first of all, it's interesting that you're doing this work in Europe during a time where several of the key players are determining whether they want to stay in Europe. Was
Absolutely.
the Brexit movement at all a factor in any of this?
Honestly, it was more coincidence than deliberate. The organizations that we're working with are based in Germany, in France, in the Netherlands, and in Belgium.
Yes.
And finally, after more than a few years of, I'd call it preliminary discussions, we had a meeting in Paris. We decided that we had much more in common to focus on than our differences, and that it was really in the best interests of the industry to collaborate and move forward to a common data model.
There's got to be some strong-headedness. I myself have some familiarity with some of the countries that you're dealing with. These are countries that have very firm opinions and ideas. Has it been difficult getting them on board with OSCRE Standards, or do they have a very scientific worldview, and do they just want to have everyone be standardized?
I think the key part of the entire initiative is the desire to work together and to concentrate on what the common areas are that we can discuss. And really, the reality is most of the organizations that are here are global, if not international. And it's increasingly a global footprint that these organizations have. And when you look at the geographic differences that have been in place, it certainly has created more than a few challenges in both the collection of data, the analysis of data, and more importantly, the decisions that are derived, that really drive the organizations that are based on that information.
You're in such a privileged viewpoint because you get to see the entire industry from a really top-down type of view. What are some of the opportunities that you see coming available that people who are here at this conference could really capitalize on?
I think one of the most important things is to recognize that regardless of where you sit within the organization, it's your responsibility to take an active role in the data governance of the organization. Whether you're at a low level within the organization, whether you're at the senior level, it takes a continual, constant effort for all of these folks to work together to get to the point where you're ensuring that the data that's collected from which the information is derived that enables you to make business decisions is the best quality that you can get. From
where you stand, what is your hope for the industry in the next 5 years?
So it's the crystal ball that you're looking for,
Yeah.
Jerry. I think one of the most important things is recognition that it's the information that's derived from the data. There's a lot of conversations here that relate to big data. And OSCRE had a board meeting yesterday and today, and one of the conversations that we had around the table of really thoughtful industry leaders is how do we get to the point where we recognize that real estate really is more about the quality of the data than the quantity of data that drives the decisions.
So thoughtful analysis and accurate keeping and measuring, those to you are the watchwords that really mean, because without those, growth is a little bit meaningless because you don't really know if you're growing or not.
Absolutely. And I think as you look at the overall industry internationally, mergers and acquisitions have really been a strong driver of the recognition of the need for standards. You're talking about companies that are combining, that have multiple platforms, multiple managers of those platforms, none of whom communicate with each other. So how do you merge these organizations in a meaningful way that ultimately improves the performance overall? And the only way to do that, quite frankly, is to have a standards-based approach to the information.
Well, I have to acknowledge the work that you and OSCRE does to make sure that that standardization continues to happen in the face of that lack of communication. And let's hope that technology brings about an environment where we'll be able to share those metrics even more easily, even more transparently, so that you can finally get to that final point of optimal metric keeping.
Well, it takes the work of all of the people that come to conferences like RealComm, that get together, that talk about the challenges they're facing within their respective organizations to really move the industry forward. And standards that are not implemented are really not standards.
That's right.
And that's, I think, one of the most important things to recognize as we look at how the industry perhaps has finally caught up to what were some very thoughtful leaders that created these standards about 15 years ago, and we continue to grow.
Well, thank you for being part of that team. Thank you for continuing to make it important. Lisa, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Likewise. Thank you, Jerry, for the
OSCRE.
opportunity.
My pleasure. Lisa Stanley from OSCRE, really helping us to make sure that what we're experiencing is well measured and well maintained. We will be back